All right. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining tonight's call. So I am super thrilled that you're taking your time to grow your business with me, and hopefully that you will find this call very impactful. So, if you are new to my calls, I always just want to start off by giving a really brief introduction. I'm Jice Johnson, and my business and what you've called into is Your Productive Biz. And so, Your Productive Biz is a productivity coaching service. And so, I offer one on one and group coaching services. And as a business productivity coach, I work with entrepreneurs like you that want to stop procrastinating, that really want to gain some control over your time and really want to start knocking out projects and goals that matter most to you. So I would definitely love if you would follow me. I am on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. And this call will actually be on YouTube as well as my other replays. And so if you want to go back and take a look and listen again, listen if you're not able to take notes or anything like that, you can always go back through the call, which I highly recommend because I really do consider these calls a little bit more advanced. I try to go past some one-on-one and kind of get into tackling issues that entrepreneurs experience. And so these topics come directly from you, the entrepreneur. And if you do have a topic that you would like for me to cover, please just let me know. You can get in contact with me in a number of different ways. You can tweet, you can Facebook, email me, of course, and so on and so forth. So if you want to get in contact with me because there is something that you would like me to dig into a little bit deeper, maybe dealing with your personal situation, I would love to add that to my list. So great. So today's call is Decisions and Destiny. And so I kind of have the subtitle, How Our Daily Decisions Impact Our Destiny. But what I think I'm going to do is do like a part one and part two because what I'm really going to unpack tonight is a little bit more of an overview and not necessarily so much of our daily decision making, but really kind of getting into some of our hardcore decision making. So I know we can all think of a time or two where we have made a decision that we regret. I have made many of them. Maybe one that's cost us more than what we bargained for. And when we make these decisions, whether it be in our personal life or our business life, sometimes those decisions can be worse or compounded by compiling one bad decision on top of another on top of another. And we can find ourselves kind of spiraling. So when it comes to business, your ability to make decisions is like paramount to being able to make your dreams really come to fruition, right? And so decision making and business ownership are almost synonymous. It's like the outcomes of your decisions will either make or break your business. And so, I can guarantee um, that although we have things that kind of pop up and come up that are out of our control, that none of the other factors that can impede in on our business success will have the same impact as our ability to make consistently good decisions in a timely manner. And so I want to say that again, consistently good decisions in a timely manner. And that's not to say that we're always going to make best decisions, or it's not to say that we'll never make poor decisions. But the best of the best, through their mistakes, they also they become really good at making good decisions consistently. And that leads to having solid steps and leaps forward rather than consistently making poor decisions that compound or lead to a string of setbacks, right? So, consistently making good decisions and doing that in a timely manner is really important. So, my first question to you is, how do you currently make your decisions? Are your decisions based on your gut? Is it based on the advice of others? Is it rooted in fear? These days we have so much information, just enormous amounts of information coming at us from multiple sources across a wide variety of platforms and seemingly in like this continuous 24-hour loop. And a lot of times these messages are contradicting. And so with all this information that's just coming at us, it can be really difficult for us to navigate and make the right types of decisions. So having a framework for decision making is important, and it can oftentimes be one of the overlooked aspects of leadership and business ownership. But this framework is necessary to help us sort through the massive amount of information that's just coming towards us and can really begin to leave us paralyzed. It can leave us misinformed, manipulate us, or make us very impulsive in our decision making. So we're going to aim to solve some of that. And so first, let's dissect what tools we have at our disposal when we're addressing and discerning the information that's coming at us. So there was an article in Forbes that lists out a hierarchy for knowledge. And according to this article, there are 4 levels of knowledge. So the first level would be our gut or our instinct. Our gut is pretty much what our emotions are telling us. A lot of times we rely on our gut when we don't have any other info to go on. Our gut is kind of all we have, right? Our instincts are kind of all we have. But even our gut can be refined, so to speak. It can be a tool that can be refined as we learn to discern information and analyze it intuitively. But that's kind of the base level. Is what is our intuition telling us? What is our gut telling us? That's a base level of knowledge. The next level is data. Raw data by itself can be misleading, and it often doesn't provide a lot of context. But when we combine that with information, which is the third level, it can really help us with filtering out some of the other methods that are around there. So information being the third level. Information is basically what gives context to the data, right? So we have that raw data, that could be statistics or numbers or just facts that are coming at us. But once we put that into quote unquote information, that kind of gives some context. It allows that data to be interpreted and processed, and then will generally allow you to make or have a better idea of how to digest that data. And then you have knowledge. Now, knowledge is information that has been refined by analysis, so much so that it's been tested or validated, and it's actionable. And it usually has a high degree of accuracy because there are proofs behind the concepts. So you have data, raw data, you have information, and then you have knowledge. And knowledge is when we have more of that proof. It's been tested, validated, that information has been validated. So let's also consider that there's opinion and theory, which are not fact. And we should consider that. We really need to think that through, because a lot of times we do treat opinion and theory as though they're fact, right? And that can definitely lead to poor decision making, because I cannot count how many times I've been in a conversation with a business owner who's like, well, I think blah, 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 whatever they think. And when you ask them about data or information or knowledge to back that up, they really don't have any. And that goes a little bit beyond having that gut instinct, because a lot of times when you just want to say I think and you don't have anything to back that up, then we're probably just ill-informed, and so, or stubborn, and that can definitely lead to poor decision making. Not that opinions and theories aren't necessary, and not that they're not important, but be mindful in our decision-making process about what's a fact versus what's an opinion or a theory. Now, something else to consider about decision-making is the source of the information that you're taking in. And so a lot of times we talk about, especially in business ownership, seeking the advice of someone else. And that's fine. What we want to do is make sure that we're seeking credible sources. You should seek advice. You should seek advice from credible sources. But let's remember that ultimately the decision still falls to you as the business owner, right? And so even in seeking out credible sources, you still have to be prepared to take responsibility for the outcome of the decisions that you make. So the question isn't if you should seek advice, but the question is really how much advice should you seek and from whom? And so you don't want to necessarily just ton of opinions, right? Depending on the subject matter or the area, you probably want to find 2 or 3 solid, credible sources, unless you're doing something like a poll for opinion or something like that. But when you are trying to make some really, integral, tough decisions, you don't want to just go and get quantity. You want to get quality over quantity, if that makes sense. Even when you're doing polling, I mean, if you're going to do a poll, you want to make sure that you're reaching the right types of people who are going to give you the type of information that you want. So that would be like your target market versus just, all your Facebook friends, for example. Um, so consider that. And then also consider the biases of your advisors and the credibility of your advisors, right? So again, having those credible sources, but also considering what types of biases that they may have. Okay, so just want to do a quick recap there. All business leaders have to make decisions, and the quality of your decisions have a direct impact on your success. So on a large scale, you must consider the type of knowledge that's coming your way. Consider if you're filtering your decisions through your gut, through raw data, through information, or through knowledge. And then also consider those whose counsel that you seek, and if they are credible, and consider what biases that they may have when you're reflecting on their advice. And then remember that ultimately the decision of the responsibility is yours as a business owner. So I want to move on a little bit into what I'm going to consider creating a framework for sound decision making. So again, we kind of talked about having that framework, and it's necessary so that as you go about making these large decisions, that you can take in the data, the information, the knowledge, and then have a system by which you can go by to make solid, sound decisions, because it's making one good decision, it's about making consistently good decisions in a timely manner. So having a framework laid out for that is going to really help when you have large decisions coming your way, knowing how you want to make those decisions and what methodology you would use to make those decisions. So I'm going to go through a couple of steps here. So first, you want to analyze the situation. You want to find out, why is there even a need for a decision? What would happen if no decision was made? Who is the decision going to impact? That might be directly, there may be an indirect impact. What kind of data or analytics or research or supporting information do you have that's going to validate the direction of wherever you're leaning it towards in this decision? So analyze the situation. Step number 2 is consider public scrutiny. So what this means is, how is your decision going to hold up in the eye of the public? Now, we live in a world today which is constantly telling us not to worry about what anyone else thinks, right? So don't worry about what anyone thinks, be true to yourself. And in many instances, that can be appropriate. So I'm not against that, but certainly not in all instances. And so, especially if you're considering a decision that's going to greatly impact others, if you're considering a decision that could harm your reputation or your credibility, or even if you're considering something that may be unethical, because there are times that we are faced with decisions where there may be an ethical and an unethical choice. And we may be considering an unethical choice. And we can see that a lot in big businesses, right? And so we can see businesses that decide to do things like back the Keystone Pipeline, or businesses that decide to dump wasteful products inside of, public places. There are decisions that get made all the time, and they're not always ethical decisions. So ask, how is your decision going to hold up to or later, the details around your decision are going to come out, especially when we're talking about largely impactful decisions. So if your decision was basically blasted across social media, across a newspaper, across, Channel 9 News, how would you feel about that? What would your family think about your decision, or other people who are vested inside of your business, whether you have shareholders or employees, or even just, fans and customers of your business? How would they feel about the decision that you made? And so that's something that you want to consider, is that public scrutiny. Now, also consider or conduct a cost or benefit analysis. So basically what that means is, consider if the potential benefits that you would get from your decision will justify whatever that decision is going to cost. And then, play around with that a little bit. See if the costs exceed your projections. What happens if the benefits fall short of your projections? So, you'll kind of put it out there and say, I think it's going to cost this, and I think it's going to make me that. But play around with those numbers a little bit and make sure that the cost benefit works. You also want to assess the risk versus reward ratio. So I'm pretty sure almost every month I speak a little bit about risk tolerance because it's an integral part of our business success. So what are the possible rewards? And you want to kind of contrast that with the potential risks and see if the odds are in your favor. So you want to conduct a risk versus reward analysis or ratio. So the next one is assess whether or not it's the right thing to do. So this is really similar to kind of the public scrutiny, but ultimately this hits on your integrity. Standing behind a decision that everyone supports is super easy, but when you have to stand behind a decision that you believe is right, even when it takes a controversial stance, that takes a lot of courage. And so there are a lot of places where compromise is needed and compromise is super important, but there is no place for compromise when it comes down to your value system or your character. So there is the public scrutiny portion, which may, take into consideration some level of compromise. But when you're talking about whether or not a decision is the right thing to do, you have to look internally and ask yourself about your personal value system, your personal level of integrity and character. Then you have to go for it and make the decision. So after you've thought these things through and you've weighed out a lot of the options that we've covered, you really have to have a bias towards taking an action and be willing to actually make a decision. And so what happens is that there'll be times where you'll have to make a decision even when you don't have all the necessary information that you want. And that's okay sometimes. What you don't want to do is fall victim to analysis paralysis, right? So you don't want to get to a place where you're just simply too scared to make a decision. So what you really want to do is, and this is kind of where that gut instinct comes into play, you want to make the best decision possible with the information that you have on hand. So yes, you are going to make dedicated efforts to get the right types of information to help you make the best possible decision. That information may not always be as much as you want. You still have to make a decision because opportunities do not stand still. And so indecision ultimately is still a decision, right? And so it's a decision not to act. And when that happens, a lot of times we can let some really key opportunities pass us by that won't be back. And some of those opportunities are the ones that really, really will take our business to that next level. So we don't want to fall into the analysis paralysis situation. You do have to work towards making a decision even when you don't have all the information you want on hand. And so my last tip here is to always have a backup plan. The real test of your leadership is going to be how you respond in the moments when you realize that you've made the wrong decision. Every action is made up of both constants and variables, and it's going to be sometimes that those variables are going to work against us. And so smart leaders always have a contingency plan. They have an idea of what they're going to do when something falls outside of the realm of what they can control, because that's just life, right? And we kind of talked about that in the beginning. There are going to be things that fall outside of your control. What do you do when that happens? So have a backup plan. I hear sometimes that people say things like, this has to work. I have no plan B. And I think what we do is we listen to these success stories that are the 1 in a million story, and we take the exception. Yeah, I have no plan B is a flawed plan. So take into consideration that you need to have a backup plan. So let's review. That's 7 steps. We're going to analyze the situation. We're going to put it up to public scrutiny. We're going to do a cost and benefit analysis. Okay. Then we're going to do a risk versus reward analysis. We're going to assess whether or not it is the right thing to do. We're going to make a decision, and we are going to have a plan B. So those are the 7 steps to creating a framework for making consistently solid decisions. So now I hope that you found this helpful. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do a part 2 next month, because this framework is really about how you manage these high-level important decisions that have major impact on your destiny. And these are very important decisions. Sometimes we don't even realize they're coming at us. But we also need to address how we make daily decisions that also prevent us from moving forward in our business. So I want to make sure that we take some time to hit on that, and to hit on both of those in one night was just going to be so much information coming at you that I didn't want anyone to feel really overwhelmed. So I wanted to address kind of the larger picture for creating a framework that allows you to make big, impactful decisions in your business and in your personal life. Of course, here our focus is business, but this framework can still work inside of your personal life as well. And then what we'll do is in June 20th, God willing, for those of you who don't know, I am getting ready to have a baby in June. So God willing, we will have June 20th still here, and I'll be hanging on. But June 20th, we'll do part 2, and we'll talk about making the right decisions on a daily basis that move us towards our goals. So I want to thank you for joining tonight's call. And again, the next call is going to be June 20th. And so if you found this call helpful, please, please, please tell another business owner. If you would like to work with me, I am accepting new clients, and you can schedule a discovery session with me directly from my website. You can go to yourproductivebiz.com. And in our session, we'll cover what you're struggling with, and we can talk about a game plan to get you on track. And then again, of course, I would always love if you connect with me. I am on Facebook, I am on Twitter. And then this this call replay will be available on my YouTube channel, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for other tips and things that are coming out from there as well. So no worries. Well, again, I hope that tonight's call was super helpful. Again, I appreciate everyone for taking your time tonight to listen in. And next call will be June 20th. And I just want to wish everyone a good night. Thank you.